Hello. I was just checking if the audio is actually working, and I really hope that it is because I got new AirPods version 2, and yeah, sounds not amazing, but let's hope that it works. Sorry for this confusing introduction. Let's use this digital twin as an approach, and that's what I'm going to talk about. And of course, my name is Nicholas Wern. I've been working with digital twins now for the last 3 to 4 years, probably, well, a little bit more, 4 to 5 years. Background in innovation and strategy for the ones that are new, focusing on building automation, mission to solve all the world's problems and operate in all countries in the world, which is basically what I'm doing at the moment, or at least, have the ability to do through the global digital twin platform that we have at EDX. And that's actually what I want to talk about, digital twin as an approach, and also the zoom in, zoom out capabilities that we can actually utilize on a global perspective. So there's no picture here. It says Sean Barrett. There should be. Let me see. So if anyone else is listening, can you see me? Can you not see me? Let me turn it on off the cam. So there, I see myself at least. I hope that is fine. Otherwise, Sean and the rest, you will have to listen to my voice. And Sean, if you have any questions regarding digital twins, feel free to post them here in the chat. So first of all, what are digital twins? Well, it's a visual and virtual representation of something that exists in reality, fed with real-time data at different intervals, so-called twinning rates. And then, okay, perfect, you can see me. And then you can, use that to do different things, right? And sometimes we want to talk about prototype digital twins. They don't necessarily, exist yet. And then you have, the aspects of simulation. You might want to visualize it in augmented reality and mixed reality. You want to maybe do it in virtual reality, or you want to maybe have like dashboards. But that's again, dashboards for me is not necessarily a visual or virtual representation of reality. It's an abstraction of reality, but that's not necessarily a digital twin, in my opinion, depending on how you see it. It could be an application layer on top or related to a digital twin, but again, it's not just a digital twin. So to put that into perspective, I was attending a conference, the last couple of days in Amsterdam, fantastic times, and it was all about, mobile connectivity, 5G, 6G, hi-fi holographic societies, and there was one even panel about, the metaverse, which was also interesting. But how does the metaverse especially relate to digital twins, and how can you at least utilize digital twins and approach to do whatever it is that you do? And I think that's the point, right? What are companies doing today, and how can modern tools and technology, in the right order, help them get where they want to go faster, better, with planetary purpose. And that's basically it, right? Not just focusing too much on the actual digital twin, but how is that being leveraged? So I'm going to go through a concrete use case where it's again, it relies on this global digital twinning, not just as an approach from a technology perspective, but how to think about solving problems. Because right now, today, there are a lot of people all over the world, billions, that are probably having similar problems, and sometimes they might use the same solution in order to get it solved, or they use modern solutions or old solutions or different solutions. But what if we could use collaborate together and try to solve the same problems much, 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 much faster, and also get the solutions and the recipes out to everyone much faster, so that we can level up as a species? That's what I've been trying to do, or find a methodology to do. And I think that's also why digital twins is a fantastic tool, or an approach more, in how to get this stuff done. So let's take, again, I was at this 5G summit, or Network X event in Amsterdam. We talked a lot about this, and 5G is, of course, pretty hot topic, because connectivity. A lot of companies as well as people want to get better connectivity. And let's say if you have a city like Gothenburg, let's take the city I live in, for instance, and we want to deploy, private 5G in the entire city, right? So let's say it's not a brownfield something; it's actually greenfield. We don't have it yet, and we want to make sure that we can make the best decisions possible, with the future that we're going to have, because the future is where we are gonna live in, right? So how do you actually could get that done? So from an EDX perspective, and again, what I'm, that's why I work with the company. That's why I love the methodology and the philosophy between, behind what we want to do. So you can, we want to understand what is here right now. So before it becomes a digital twin, of course, you have to feed it either, real-time data or something that exists in reality. So let's start with what exists in reality, which is the city itself. And we might have, some GIS data. We might have some, photographs. We might have, a lot of different data that we want to get into this, as this digital twin. But how EDX work is that we can take satellite data, have that up to date, not just buy it on bulk and then it goes obsolete, next week or in a month or two, so you have to buy it over again, but actually subscribe to Gothenburg, subscribe to this part of the world, so you get an up to date, ground perspective of where the trees are, where buildings are, and maybe feed that, new construction, so you actually get a spatial awareness of where everything is, because that's the most important stuff, or one of the most important aspects when planning for, radio frequencies and doing wireless planning. Where is everything today and where it's going to be? And then you can also, feed that with existing, where people are moving, where stuff is going to get built, all these kind of things. And you build up a virtual representation of reality in 3D, of course. And that's also one of the main pillars. Visual digital twin. So I'm gonna. Well, I'll get to your point hopefully pretty soon. And the benefit with that is so you create a baseline. So that is satellite data, and you turn that into knowing exactly how tall buildings are, trees are, all this kind of stuff, and you build up the context. Then of course you can make that more granular, so the facades that they don't melt. And that's, I think, with what Will is saying here, work with local vendors. So you can work with a local drone company that does 360 photogrammetry, so you get even more up-to-date models based on that digital twin. So first you have a digital twin of the planet, but then you also can zoom in to Gothenburg, and you can get more granular information working with local vendors and actors to get a highly realistic image of Gothenburg. And then what you want to do, in terms of the 5G planning, and go into the prototype digital twin. Not so we don't really have digital twins yet, but we have a prototype digital twin, which means that we have the the reality, and then we want to run simulations. So we ask this digital twin, knowing where buildings and trees are, and say, okay, I want to reach 100% connectivity with, as the minimum amount of routers, the minimum amount of collectors, cell towers, optimize this as much as possible. I want to responding to a tender, and the tender says you have to use Nokia equipment or Ericsson or Huawei or whatever it might be, Lenovo, or a combination of multiple equipment vendors coming from the fiber optics, the antennas, the cabling, whatever that might be. So you want to feed that into the digital twin, so it has all the parameters to be able to answer this question. So once we have the bill of materials, once we have the spatial context, the digital twin will work in our favor to respond to our goal and the impact that we're looking for, which is 100% future-proof, 5G connectivity on the entire city of Gothenburg. So that's what we do. So we ask the digital twin of Gothenburg, please tell us, and even more so, show us in this 3D virtual world that we already now created of Gothenburg, where we should place all this kind of stuff. And maybe in terms of turning it into a digital twin, okay, we get the existing 4G connectivity aspects in, also as an overlay. So we got that real-time data, okay, seeing how the existing network is. So we get an SS digital twin picture, and then we can also show, okay, this is what we have right now. Let's move on to the 2B situation, and we're using this prototype digital twinning and the simulation capabilities for the digital twin to show us. So if you imagine you're in your city, or imagine Gothenburg, and you see the skyline, you know where the trees are, and then you can basically see, okay, this tower needs to have this equipment with these antennas, operating at these frequencies based on the spectrums available, with this amount of energy efficiency, so you can actually have energy reports in real time about the CO2 before it actually happens, and you can optimize it accordingly. So you're going to look into the city, or stand on top of the city, or first person, whatever it is that you want, and you're going to see these cell towers, the macro ones and the micro ones, and all the connectivity just boom down from the sky, right? In terms of augmented reality capabilities. So you can doom, 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 and then you can see the entire network, forming on top of the city, and then say, okay, now we get to 100%. This is exactly where you should place all the infrastructure. This is the infrastructure that you could get in, and then you can have different scenarios based on whatever cost or reliability or warranties or whatever it is that you want. And then you actually, know exactly where it is. You win the bid, you win the tender. And because also have the augmented reality aspects, you know exactly where they're supposed to be. You know exactly what kind of equipment. You exactly have the manuals for that. So if you're an installer, there's basically little to no brain power to be done, because you can end up you go to exactly that site, and you maybe have done this in the metaverse or the virtual reality first, as in the copy. So you know exactly where you're supposed to install it. You know exactly how to install it, because you've done it maybe 10 or 15 times, either in the reality or in virtual reality that is a copy of Gothenburg. So you also prepared where to do roadblocks and all this kind of stuff. So once you end up in reality to actually install this on site, one, you've done it before. Two, you're going to have all the instructions with the components and the buildings. You're going to see the future in front of you, um, displayed in augmented reality with HoloLens on. And worst case, if you need any help, you might have an expert seeing exactly what you're seeing in front of you. So when you're going to install it, you're not only going to have instructions, but you can also bring out the manuals that you need in front of you visually. So sometimes, as you probably know, they come from different vendors, and they might have different terms, different all this kind of stuff, and it becomes a problem when you're going to dig into different databases or different systems to pull this data out. But the benefits of having this in augmented reality and working in mixed reality is you can actually pull this data out from 10 different containers, lay them out like documents in front of you, and have that guide you at different steps of the process. And then once in the future, we can also have this so that you have a visual AI or artificial intelligence and analytics ingrained in the HoloLens or the equipment, so that not only will this create a recording of how you install it and when you install it and make it easier for people to install, but it can also do a checklist, say like this was installed correctly, let's store it in this in a blockchain NFT kind of something, tie that to this part of the cell tower, and basically absorb the knowledge not into separate databases that have no context or no relation to the reality that's supposed to be involved with, but actually be tied to that part of reality. So the actual cell tower absorbs that knowledge, and it keeps it in sort of a contextual database kind of way, right? It's tied to that part of reality. So what happens then? You do this and you install the network, and then once you install the network accordingly, you basically turn it on, and then you can see, is it exactly how we simulated, and you can basically see this come alive in front of you, and then if you have the antennas on, if they're directed in the right capacity, does it work, does it not work, and then you can get to the point where you have this up and running. So basically what you have then, that's when you created a digital twin of the entire 5G network. You host that in the cloud, and then if something changes, let's say a pandemic happens, and that will change everything in terms of when people are going to work, how they're going to work, all this kind of stuff. And if you just have like an obsolete perspective of this, you're going to make erroneous decisions. That's going to lead to you know coverage going down, Netflix usage, all this kind of stuff. But if you have a digital twin of this network, not just the assets, but actually the traffic, and you can optimize this in real time, you can simulate what will happen, and you can predict this, that's when you come to much more robust framework, so that maybe this will change, and you have people at a stadium that is going out from a stadium, and then needs more support, then you can redirect this. So it's the same with any kind of system. So that's the benefit of using in digital twinning, from a purpose or an approach to, first you get in the reality that we have, you feed it necessary information to run these simulations, then you feed it even more real-time data, you build up the digital twin, and then you use the digital twin as a perpetual knowledge transfer, not only for other systems but also for people, because the way that you want to tie it is actually to a 3D context, not just 3D, a metaverse kind of perspective that it could be anywhere depending on how you see it, but actually tied to reality. So once you have this, the benefit of this would be that, okay, when now we know how this works, we can gain all the insight, we have the methodology and the approach to do this. So it's basically doing exactly the same stuff in any other city. You go to that city, you understand, what is there. You use satellite data to build up a virtual reality, or like a virtual representation of that reality, which could be accessed through virtual reality or through augmented reality or mixed reality. So you can basically holoport or teleport in to that part of the world. And if you have local vendors that keeps it updated, that's also when that world will be updated. So if you have any questions, please let me know. But it's definitely working with 360 photos or crowdsource stuff, or continuous nerfing by crowd-based community, or whatever that might mean, in keeping this digital twin up to date and alive for a foreseeable future. And how would this, relate to the metaverse? That's a really good question. And again, I've been looking into the metaverse, of course, like everyone else, and seeing all these, PowerPoints. But for me, the digital twinning aspects, if you tie it, of course, to reality, which is the very definition of digital twins, and metaverse, you can create a lot of value together. So for me, the metaverse could, of course, be used to escape reality, and we have like no boundaries, and it should be based on a decentralized, autonomous network that no one owns, and you're not in there to make money. You're just there to, I don't know, copy clone yourself into another part of reality, or whatever that might mean. And that is all fun and games. But if you can actually leverage metaversal applications and activities to solve problems much, much faster, collaborate on a global scale, and copy paste these solutions, I think that's something that would be extremely interesting. Because if you just look at the use case that I said, you can have, an antenna metaverse, right? Where all the antenna manufacturers or nerds or people that are really interested in 5G antennas, they could have their own metaverse. And they could be a metaverse for, 5G people. They can be a metaverse for logistics, for, trees, for buildings, all this kind of stuff. But, it's not separate. And that's, I think, like, that's one of the benefits, that so that we can take the best tree from the tree metaverse, if that exists, with all the different trees, are in terms of the different trees, and then we can create new versions of that trees as well, without any boundaries. We have the antennas, we have the manufacturers, also like in the manufacturer metaverse or whatever that might be, and we can just share information freely and deploy that into the real world if we want, having come up with better, faster solutions together. And for me, the metaverse is an ability to collaborate, communicate, have conversations with anyone on the planet in whatever context that we want, in whatever setting, and would allow us to create at the speed of thought. So I don't see any more comments. It was more comments about some stuff that you can see me. But if you have any comments, feel free to share them. But I definitely think the methodology of, you know, getting people around the shared reality and trying to use modern tools to improve reality and solve problems faster. And again, for companies not just to stare about, buzzword bingo and the metaverse and digital twins, but to actually say, okay, what is it that we're trying to achieve as a company? What is, our 5-year strategy? Where can we save money? How much does stuff cost today? What is the ambition that we have? And knowing and understanding these tools that it might be more modern than other tools, how would they help us in achieving this better, faster, maybe more sustainable? And I definitely think that, de-risking a lot of the stuff with installation, having a digital twin that can change, when it has to, and be able to continuously have also a parameter that optimizes the 5G network based on CO2 savings, and continuously having this as a carbon footprint, and even possibly turn that savings into carbon credits, right? So you can actually save a lot of money by optimizing, infrastructure much, much better according to a baseline. So you prove additionality, and you can save money and even make money, and, create a better planet. I think that's, definitely a lot of the benefits when it comes to combining these technologies. I realize that I'm talking pretty fast now, but for me, the holistic aspects of getting to a shared reality, plus we creating this minimal viable twin, working with existing data, which in this case was, subscribing to satellite data that can be updated throughout the life cycle, and then working with vendors that has this shared context, so you can actually collaborate much easier. And you're going from normal decision making or human decision making, more where data, you work with standards that makes the data AI ready, and then you can work with more data that and approaches that are AI ingrained, AI infused, and then to more autonomous and self-learning aspects. And I know that for 5G and 6G, and basically a lot of industries, there's also European directives which forces companies to have this kind of notion of explainable AI, right? How did you come to this conclusion? And that's also one of the major benefits in the future, when you can go from data, to the data to impact loop. So from data to information, information to insight, insight to action, and action to impact, but also explain how fast you're doing it, why you were taking this, which is context is everything when it comes to AI machine learning, obviously, and also be able to explain this to possibly decision makers. So, but if you can have the copy, you have Gothenburg, you have the digital twin of Gothenburg, which is the exact replica of what has happened, what is happening, possibly also what will happen to some extent. And then you also have the what ifs, the infinite amount of digital twins of Gothenburg that shows you different what if scenarios. So that's where you want to be when you want to plan stuff, right? What if we do this? What happens then? Okay, maybe that's not the best way. Let's bring in some people from the streets and see, like, would they like this building? Let's deploy that in augmented reality before we actually build it, before we actually do anything, and they can give their feedback. Or we don't want to deploy it in augmented reality. We just want to create a Gothenburg 2025, and that is the optimal version that hundreds of thousands of people decide to live in. Maybe we should copy some of that stuff into the real world. All these kind of things is tied to digital twins, in collaboration, which the hype word is, of course, metaversal activities or perspectives, where again you're not really bound by you know old solutions or mindsets, and it doesn't have to be tied to any monetary reasons either. But I think that in this day and age, I'm not a climate change denier. I met a couple of those at the event now in Amsterdam. I believe that we need to solve problems much faster. We need to collaborate, we need to share solutions, and when we want to share solutions, they have to be able to be explainable to other people in different domains, and we need to copy and paste this on a global fabric that makes sense. And for that to happen, we need decentralized real-time insight. We need a visual and virtual reality of the world we live in that can continuously be updated. And we need to use mixed reality. We need to use all these different tools that are at our disposal to bring us faster towards the future that we know will happen, but we don't necessarily have the time to achieve it, knowing all the stuff that is going on. Wars, of course, but definitely climate change and all of these things that are happening. So please join me if you want, in terms of sharing the digital twinning and just trying to solve problems much faster, knowing that we can use modern tools in the right order, share not only the ingredients but actually the solutions and the recipes and how to get this stuff done, and share this on a global landscape. And I think that's an approach to digital twinning that could work with a city, a manufacturing plant, a product, or even a country, or basically anything that either has existed, will exist. And I strongly believe that this is the way that we're going to collaborate and share solutions and be able to solve problems ultimately much faster on a global level. So I hope that makes sense. Not a lot of comments, maybe the next time. And if you have any comments whatsoever, for the ones that are listening in afterwards, just reach out to me, Nicholas Wern. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this has been somewhat informative. Thank you so much. Bye bye.